Now, many people think that you need to go to the gym to get big arms and big shoulders, but that's not always the case. For me, I did it with calisthenics, and today I'm going to show you a routine that I commonly do to maintain the size of my arms.
Can you really get bigger shoulders with just calisthenics in your very own home? Well, in this video, I'm going to be going over CALISTHENICS workouts to better understand exactly how elite strength athletes train for strength and size, and figure out if it's the right approach for you.
And the first exercise is going to be the 90-degree push-up. Now, the 90-degree push-up is one of my favorite exercises for this because when you are at the bottom of the rep, you're squeezing both your arms and your shoulders to keep yourself parallel to the floor. Alright,
so the first recommendation that he's pretty much made is to train the 90-degree handstand push-up, and I would say that's a very generous recommendation to do right off the bat of this video, simply because this movement is very difficult to even obtain, let alone maintain at a high level for multiple repetitions. But thankfully, he does provide a couple alternatives to target the similar muscle groups and, relatively stay within that same intensity of the 90-degree handstand push-up.
Now, if you can't do the 90-degree push-up, an easier variation is just to hold the position, because you put your arms and your shoulders under a lot of pressure just to maintain that position that's parallel to the floor. If you still can't do that, you can open up your legs to make it easier. So the objective is to do just 5 sets of a hold for as long as you can and rest for 2 to 3 minutes in between.
But here's the issue that I'm initially seeing. And first off, if we're going to be criticizing his workouts specifically to him, then I definitely don't have a problem with him training the 90-degree handstand push-up, because he simply might just be training that skill for the purpose of getting better at that skill. So specificity is key. So if he wants to get better at the 90-degree handstand push-up, then he has to train that to some degree, right? And it's also good to know that he's able to do this for 2 to 3 sets for, anywhere between 3 reps or so. So he's not choosing a movement that's super difficult for him to even perform with adequate technique and volume. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that him choosing the 90-degree handstand push-up, this high strength and technique demanding movement, makes sense in terms of like the exercise structure and hierarchy of the workout. Now, is the 90-degree handstand push-up effective for building muscle, specifically to your shoulders? Well, the simple answer is no. And that's mainly because it involves a whole lot of variables, a bunch of muscle groups at a very high level to even adequately perform this movement. You need technique, you need balance, you need overall body stability just to even do this exercise with correct form, let alone to do this for multiple repetitions and for 2 to 3 sets. And let's not forget, man, the strength required to even do this movement is extremely high. It's very difficult. So it's a very high barrier to entry to even start approaching this movement right here. And with all these different moving parts, it pretty much goes to show that there's too many variables for you to truly train your shoulders close to or till failure. And that's honestly the #1 driving factor for building muscle. However, what I'm getting from this video, and you'll soon see that he's not just doing this exercise for his workout, and he has a particular approach to why he's doing the 90-degree handstand push-ups. And we're going to just take a look at what he does next to help give more volume to his shoulders.
I'm not doing a lot of reps for 90-degree push-up, mainly because it's a strength element. It consumes a lot of energy in my shoulders and my arms. So I'm kind of doing it to fatigue my arms and my shoulders faster, so that later when we proceed on to shoulder and tricep isolation, it is going to be much easier to hit hypertrophy for muscle growth to happen.
So there you have it. This exercise clearly showcases that he's not truly training this movement for hypertrophy. He's specifically training it for strength, because quite frankly, it is a very strength demanding movement. It's very difficult to even execute. So he's just here to practice the 90-degree handstand push-ups. That's why he's doing just like 2 to 3 repetitions, right? So in that perspective, that approach, it makes sense to why he chose the 90-degree handstand push-up first as this initial lift. So in this case, this will be considered his primary lift. But even with all that being said, I have no issue with him training 90-degree handstand push-up or anybody else doing it. It's just the fact that I want y'all to know that 90-degree handstand push-ups is not going to be effective for building your shoulders. Okay, let's just understand that part. So him having big shoulders isn't necessarily being attributed to him training the 90-degree Ugh, that was a tongue twister. Him doing the 90-degree handstand push-ups isn't going to be really specific for him building muscles and him attributing his shoulder size, right? It's specifically for just improving his strength on a skill. He's practicing the movement, hence why he's working within the lower rep ranges, so he can just get better at the movement, which is completely fine. There's no issue with that. Now, I'm not saying he hasn't built any muscle with this movement, because if you don't know, you can build muscle with a plethora of rep ranges, and him doing 2 to 3 reps with low RPEs isn't effective for building muscle, but that doesn't mean he doesn't build muscle at all. He can indirectly build muscle by training this way. What I wanted to just kind of state and reiterate was that this is not the primary exercise for him to have bigger muscles in his shoulders, right? Now, his alternatives though, and this is where I have a little bit of pushback to it, is that he's pretty much showcasing static holds, static movements of the 90-degree handstand push-up, but with easier progressions, right? So he's doing like a straddle 90-degree hold. So pretty much like a bent arm hold. Now, I'm not going to say this is something that I would do or even coach for my own clients to build shoulders size, right? That just doesn't necessarily make sense. Now, if you want to learn the 90-degree handstand push-up, doing bent arm isometric holds will prove to be useful, but you're not going to be building muscle with doing isometric holds, okay? That's just the facts. Simply because whenever you're contracting your muscle in a static position, an isometric position, this is going to be ideal for strengthening your joints and tendons and connective tissue, not necessarily the muscle fibers such as your shoulders, the delts, things of that nature. However, I'm not saying you can't build any muscle. It's just not effective for building muscle to your shoulders. This is why gymnasts, when they're doing static positions, they have very strong tendons and joints, because they are training the static positions for a very long time at a high intensity. But they're doing a lot of dynamic movements in between those static movements, right? So they're not going straight into just doing static skills like a static planche on the rings. They go into a plethora of ranges of motion first, aka, going through that range of motion to build muscle, and then they hold a particular static skill. So doing just static movements isn't going to be building your muscle, but rather it's going to help strengthen your joints, your tendons, to learn a particular movement, such as in this case, the 90-degree handstand push-up. But again, the 90-degree handstand push-up isn't ideal for building muscle, so there's no need for you to be doing the static position of the exercise to build muscle either. Unless you simply want to just learn the exercise, and that's cool, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what not to do. I'm just kind of giving y'all my insights upon this guy's training. So what I would recommend instead is that if you do want to learn the 90-degree handstand push-up without the wall, and you want to accumulate more volume, or perhaps you want to learn that particular skill, then a good regressional exercise to still build muscle and even learn the 90-degree handstand push-up is to simply do the pseudo planche push-up. And why I'm bringing this up is because you're in the same body positioning whenever you're pushing back up from the 90-degree handstand push-up within the pseudo planche push-up. And because it's a dynamic based movement, you're going to be favoring the hypertrophy scale more so than the isometric movement. And the pseudo planche push-up is going to be greatly emphasizing the shoulders and the upper pecs. So, hey, you're pretty much getting the best of both worlds. I would always put pseudo planche push-ups over an isometric hold, whether you want to build muscle or if you want to learn the 90-degree handstand push-up. And to be honest, that's actually how I learned the 90-degree handstand push-up, simply by doing pseudo planche push-ups. And in this next video segment, you'll see that he also trains the handstand push-ups. Like, these two right here are going to be really all you need to do, alongside with negatives to pretty much learn the 90-degree handstand push-up. But the purpose of this video isn't to showcase what's ideal for learning that skill. It's to just talk about what he's doing and what he's recommending as progressional exercises that's beneficial for building shoulder size. So let's get on to the next segment of the video.
Now comes my favorite part, which is the shoulder isolation, and that's going to be the handstand push-up. If you can't do the handstand push-up, go ahead and do the pike push-up, which is a way easier variation of the handstand push-up. Now, when you're doing the handstand push-up or the pike push-up, your objective is to repeat it until failure. So I'm going to hit as many reps as I can for about 3 to 4 sets.
All right, so now we're getting a little bit more clear as far as the process of building muscle, training for hypertrophy, getting in a volume specific to your shoulders. And pretty much I agree with what he says in this statement. If you want to isolate your delts a little bit more, which in this case, he's isolating the anterior and a little bit of the lateral delts, doing an overhead pressing movement is going to be mandatory. Every single person will be doing some kind of overhead pressing movement if they're training their shoulders. Like that's known and you can't negate it, right? Whether you're a powerlifter, calisthenic athlete, or simply a bodybuilder. Now, specific to him, are freestanding handstand push-ups ideal for building muscle? And I will say there's 2 answers to this question. If we're talking from his perspective and his level of strength, and similar to me as well, if you can do the freestanding handstand push-up or any movement within the moderate rep ranges, so let's say 5 to 10 reps, then this is going to be ideal for building muscle, because the 5 to 10 rep ranges are, objectively speaking, ideal for building muscle. You're getting enough repetitions. It's an exercise or load or progression that's highly intense enough to still stimulate mechanical tension, still stimulate those muscles so you can build and improve your strength adaptations while building muscle, because you're getting that moderate rep range. Now, let's say if you can't do the freestanding handstand push-up for 5 to 10 reps, let's say you can only do like 1 or maybe 2 and it's very inconsistent, then no, the handstand push-ups without the wall is not going to be ideal for you. So thankfully, he brought about a very useful regressional movement, the pike push-ups, a great way to start learning the handstand push-up without the wall. And it's also a great hypertrophy-based movement. I still do it to this day as like a drop set exercise. Now, I will recommend too, if you want to get closer to that same level of intensity as the freestanding handstand push-up, but eliminate the extra factors such as, balance, stability, technique, all of that stuff, because to be quite frank, the more stabilized you are when doing a movement, the better it is going to be for training for hypertrophy, because you can train that particular muscle group close to or till failure, which is very important, right? Having more points in contact for stability, it's just by default going to make you train that particular movement till failure, till low-key technical failure, or, absolute failure where you're like doing terrible form, but you're still going through the motions. But that's beside the point. I recommend doing the chest to wall or the back to wall handstand push-ups. Now, this right here is going to be a great way to increase your strength, build muscle, and still train relatively intensely enough to the freestanding handstand push-up. Now, obviously, if you can't do 5 to 10 reps, then that means you got to regress the movement so you can getting enough repetitions, such as doing like the pike push-ups like he recommended, or the elevated pike push-ups where you're putting your feet on the elevated surface. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is choose the right progression exercise that allows you to stay within that 5 to 10 rep ranges if you want to accumulate more volume to help build more muscle in the shoulders. Now, my final recommendation, which he doesn't really go into detail, he kind of just trains the dips afterwards, is to start focusing on isolating your lateral delts, because the lateral delts of your shoulders is pretty much going to give you the width of your frame. So appearing bigger, having bigger shoulders is really important if you have round delts, meaning you want to get the width of your shoulders bigger. So you can isolate them by doing the ring lateral raises, or another name could be the ring Y raises. It's very similar to that of the cable lateral raise or the dumbbell lateral raise. It doesn't necessarily matter. I've done this variation multiple times. I prefer to do it with the dumbbells, but if I have the gymnastic rings and it's like suitable for me to do it in a session in the gym, I go ahead and do ring lateral raises. But if I don't have that suitability of training with the rings in the gym, then I just do dumbbell lateral raises. So this is a very important part that he kind of missed out. But again, this kind of does indicate that you have to have some extra equipment. So maybe that's why he didn't bring it up. But I'm sure you can find a way to set up your rings either at home or at a nearby park, or literally outside your backyard. This depends on what's available. You got to be kind of creative. But I will say this, if you're tired of figuring out what to do, what exercises to train, and can't seem to find how to build muscle, how to improve your strength in calisthenics, then I highly recommend you to book a call with me by clicking the link in the description or the pinned comments. And I'll pretty much help answer any questions that you may have regarding improving your strength in calisthenics, weighted calisthenics, building the physique. So if you're the type to enjoy these videos, then I'm sure and confident to say that you're gonna be enjoying this one-on-one 15-minute conversation with me, just me and you, your questions, my answers. But hey, what do I know? If you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm the Tough Fitness Scout shit, no cap.
Cobra Trains, he's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.